It's 10:20 on a Saturday morning at the Fuji Speedway on the side slopes of the most iconic piece of real estate in Japan, Mount Fuji. This is the fourth round of the Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia. I'm Bruce Jones. I'm joined in the commentary position by Steve Dawson, getting set for the GT4 qualifying. We have two sessions separated by, they're both 15 minutes long, separated by 7 minutes. What we do have, though, is a view today. When we came into the circuit at around 7 o'clock this morning, it was cloudy. The clouds were low in the valleys. We were waiting and hoping. Came around the corner. Didn't expect to see Mount Fuji, and there it was. But now look at the screen. There it isn't.
Yeah, there she was, and she's deciding that she'll make an appearance every now and then. It's funny, walking around the paddock, you see groups of 2 and 3 people just going to the far end of the grandstand, because that's the view you get of Mount Fuji, and some of them turn back disappointed, some of them turn back scanning the glorious photographs they've taken on their phone.
Well, come on, mate, it's a great view down to the valley. Even better view than normal at the jazzy BMW team studio. They started the year with one BMW M4, and for this weekend they brought out a second one, so that's very good news. Up to 7 runners in the GT4 class. As I said, we'll have driver 1 going out to do this first session, a 7-minute break after their quarter of an hour trying to set their best qualifying time, and then their teammate, driver number 2, will take over. But the second of the 2 cars is driven by Masahiko Ida, who'll go first in number 82, and then Shinsuke Umeda and that's the regular car, 81 we're looking at there. Takayuki Kinoshita and Sanaka Jukuchu, super strong, hugely well supported, and it doesn't half make you want to go for the horizontal hold button, old-fashioned television, just try and settle that design. But when you're up close, Steve, as you do down the pit lane, it's quite a car to look at, quite a combination of colours.
Yeah, getting more and more used to it, actually. The drivers love it. They were telling me last time we all gathered that not only do they love the livery, but they love the car as well. Very, very proud of the way that one has been going. Let's see if that kind of form can carry over.
Well, there's a supporter in the pit lane, huge support always at Suzuka and Fuji. They really are passionate. But the first car set to go out for this first 15 minutes of qualifying is from Craft Bamboo Racing. It was fastest of all this morning, Jean-Marc Merlan, and he's got a new teammate from Hong Kong, David Pun. He's taken the seat normally occupied by Frank Yu, who's still, such an integral part of Craft Bamboo Racing. But David, let's see what he can do. This great circuit. I mean, so many twists and turns, gradient changes. But look, just off the racing line, we've had 3 days in which 2 days ago, heavy rain. Yesterday it sort of tailed out a little bit, but more rain overnight. We've had track action this morning, but it's still sort of damp if you go off the line, and certainly if you go to the grass beyond, that will still retain all the moisture. Now, here's a car we haven't seen before, Birth Racing Project, and I thought we were going to need the pincers, the forceps, because it didn't go out this morning.
It didn't.
Birth has been induced.
Yes, delayed somewhat. They've had a little bit of a break, obviously checking out final details on that car. The debut will come very shortly. I'm sure they're very excited. And
again, when we look at GT4, it's a separate class within the overall, runs alongside the GT3, somewhat down on pace, but this is a level that's going up and up. And in fact, just yesterday at Goodwood in the United Kingdom, there's going to be a category between GT4, which we're looking at now, and the more powerful GT3s that are tucked away in the garage. It's called GT2, slightly confusing, but it's to bridge that gap, give these gentlemen drivers a chance to step up to something a bit more powerful. Porsche's launched its car, and yesterday at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, Audi launched its car. But if they're keen on staying in GT4, Toyota just launched its Supra GT4 car yesterday, so another shape of car that can come out and play in these championships all around the world. So it's all bubbling and growing, which is great news.
Wonderful action all around the world. In this part of the world, we'll have a starting grid this weekend that will feature 2/3 of the drivers representing countries from Asia. So that is a super achievement, and it's bound to grow and develop further. There's somebody wearing that BMW livery. He won't be missed.
Exactly, BMW Team Studios. We came in this morning, we saw a BMW pull up alongside at the traffic lights. It had his little Nürburgring silhouette sticker, and I thought, racing fan. Then down the flanks, discreet little Team Studi BMW sticker. So tuning houses always been enormously important here in Japan. And again, I love to see people out around the circuit with the T-shirts, and BMW Team Studio, they seem to clean up pretty much because so many people seem to love that livery. But just touching on what you were saying, Steve, about around 2/3 of the drivers. It was a real push this year not to have it as a playground for European drivers. Yes. So each of the teams has to have, busy down in race control.
As always, looking
at the screens, paying attention. It should be fairly easy for them to spot all the cars. We have 7, but this weekend we have 24 in GT3, best field of the year, 4th round, up to 31 cars. So it goes to show, with the new mix of making sure you have an Asian-based driver in all of the cars, It's not just changed the complexion of the driver makeups, it's also boosted the appeal of the championship. So there was a roll of dice, and it's really worked well. And it's bringing not just drivers, but also teams, and, as I said, with Toyota Supra, getting now ready for GT4 racing, another manufacturer into the fold, which is fantastic news. Up front, this morning, it was the Craft Bamboo Racing number 77, Mercedes AMG. This is one of two of the Team iRace.win entries, Ringo Chong and Setyawan Santoso, and Kyo Chang's in the sister car with a new driver this weekend, another new driver, Jouji from Taipei. Actually, my favourite livery in the class is still this metallic blue. There's something about metallic blue racing cars, particularly in GT form, that I really love. And number 11, that's GTO Racing with TTR, been on good form this year. Brian Lee, also another driver from Taipei, will go out first, and then Tony Fong.
Here's that Birth Racing project that didn't really get a run in final practice.
But, you know, they lost a bit of track time there, but they did have track time yesterday evening. But this is a car they've already been running through the course this season. In fact, if you've got really good eyes, you can see there are 4 names up and over the roof. Only 2 of those drivers coming out to play. So they have been competing this year with that. Koichi Okamura will be the first driver out. And again, he's staying on the dry part. The dry part, of course, is where the racing line is. So let's give you a target time for them to aim at. This morning, 2 minutes, just under 2 minutes and 1 second set by Jean-Marc Merlin. And he's going better and better. He just loves his racing out in Asia. He loves racing with Frank Yu in particular, and they've had some, great results over the last couple of seasons. But right now it's David Punn who'll be doing the second session. So we started with 15 minutes on the clock. There'll be a 7-minute interlude when driver 1 hands over to driver 2. And here's our chance to work out the difference between those cars. It's a red spoiler on the front of air dam, if you will, and door mirrors also different between the new car, the 82 car, and the 81, which is our regular BMW Team Studio.
Well, it's the one with the blue spoiler that went second quickest in final practice, official practice today. Half a second off the pace set by Craft Bamboo. So let's watch these 2 BMWs and see who gets bragging rights within the team in qualifying.
Well, you certainly expect it with the 81 crew. They've had this car for a couple of seasons now. Very, very nimble. And again, just going back to the Mercedes that set the pace this morning, that body shape, the AMG Mercedes, absolutely everybody sung the praises of the car when it was introduced because it was just really, really well balanced. This one seems a little more, the M4, I think potentially the quicker car, but I think you've got to be a better driver to get that speed out of it because it really is quite nimble, but it seems to require a little more confidence to get it just right. But that's great. I love different manufacturers trying to go the same way, having to compete on the same stage, but have different strengths at different points around the circuit. So what we're seeing very early on, all 7 cars out on the track. That's very good news indeed. The Birth Racing project has indeed arrived. So let's see them as they start to wind it up. Plenty of space for them to come and play, waiting for those first flying laps to be put on the board. And in fact, we've got 3 different drivers who set the 3 different sectors have got best times in each of those, so it's not just one car that's dominating thus far. So out lap will become flying lap will be completed.
And no coincidence, Bruce, that the BMWs have gone out together so they can sort of work at it together and help each other along?
Well, in fact, I think they've got it completely the wrong way around. You want the blue one in front of the red one.
You think
the blue one is the one with the knowledge, but what he's going for is a slipstream onto his flying lap.
Here we
go. And in fact, the first flying lap on the board is to complete his flying lap, and he's now got himself a slipstream, a toe that he's used that he's slung past. So his second flying lap, which particularly in GT4 tends to be the quicker one, he's got the flying start onto it. But as it stands, in fact, Kyo Chang 199 is the fastest of all. Not this particular Mercedes, but the sister car. And the way you can tell those apart, we saw the BMW Team Studio. One has a red spoiler and red mirrors, the other has blue. Where this Mercedes has got the yellow bonnet and the green stripes, it's the flip with the sister car, the one that's top of the charts with a 1 minute 53.381, and that shows how much faster it was this morning. It was,
yes.
2 minutes, just under 2 minutes and 1 second. So track conditions drying out. It was wet at certain parts in the paddock and clearly out on the circuit. Difference between first and second between the 199 Mercedes from Team iRace.win and Jean-Marc Merlin is just 0.3 of a second, and then the BMW's 81 ahead of 82. We saw it go past. It also set a faster lap time per lap, 1.1 and 2.3 seconds further back. 2 of the 7 cars still to set a flying time. What's happening on this lap? Good thing we've got the eyes on Jean-Marc Merlin, because the Frenchman is pushing on very hard indeed to set the fastest middle sector of anyone. He's improving definitely on the pace of the car of Kyo Chang, who's top of the charts at the moment. So Jean-Marc Merlin, nobody in front of him who can trouble him, because we can see Brian Lee just ahead of him in the GTO Racing Mercedes. That won't interrupt him. So up the slope into the final corner. Looks relatively steep there, but I guarantee you go and walk it. Of course, TV always compresses stuff,
yes,
doesn't it? You all find out you think that's like a hilly golf course, and then your calves start burning as you go up. But a nice clear run that for Jean-Marc Merlin. Will he get down into the 1 minute 52s? No, maybe a low 1 minute 53. Let's see. As he completes that, he will go top 1 minute 52.888, and immediately, Brian Lee in front of him did 1 minute 52.88, and then Jean-Marc Merlin 151.7, but now Takayuki Kinoshita in the number 81 BMW 1 minute 50.519. Those times are really tumbling, and you can see the difference in location between himself and the sister car, the number 82. Umeda is down. He's 4.8 seconds off the pace, but Takayuki Kinoshita is really flying. He's got plenty of time left to pick up his pace a little more. 1 at 50.519. No surprises, and he's already even faster this time around. You can see the purple sector. That means fastest of anybody. He's improved by over a quarter of a second. So he's at this rate, he might even get into the 1 minute 49s.
You could see it was stacked up for him to register the fastest time. He went quickest through all three sectors, and as you say, he just continues in that vein of form. He's gone purple again, and we're setting up to see a good little session here from Kinoshita in the BMW. He's going very quickly, very early,
and nobody in front of him. And also, just to point out, that time, in fact, the top two cars are now faster than any of the GT3, the far more powerful GT3 runners managed this morning. So it goes to show their session, which started at 8 o'clock, the track still was pretty wet indeed. It dried out. He hasn't improved in the middle sector, but I think he's still, I can see he's down by about a tenth, 2/10 of a second. So he's up by 0.08 of a second. So I think I can forget the 1 minute 49s. I was getting a bit ahead of myself, but looking fairly well placed for pole position. He's 1.1 seconds clear of Jean-Marc Merlin. Jean-Marc's just in front of him on the track, and in fact Jean-Marc set the fastest middle sector of anybody. So he's picking up the pace too, but he's got to find best part of 1.2 seconds. He's not going to do that.
Yeah, the times are tumbling. Interesting to watch Kinoshita see if he can pick up in the third sector and improve upon his best time.
His target 1 minute 50.519. Can he cut something out of that? 1 minute 50.632. He's a tenth of a second down there, tearing their hair out in the BMW team studio garage. No, it's looking very good indeed, but what did Jean-Marc Merlin do when he crossed line? 1 minute 51.060, so just over half a second down. So the Frenchman improving, and car 19, new to the championship, third fastest at the moment. That is very, very impressive from Okumura. I'm particularly impressed. Koichi Okumura's pace. So the 81 BMW doesn't look very fast. That's because it's cruising in. You can tell he's backed off because the sister car is playing catch up. 4.5 seconds down on the ultimate pace.
Seems satisfied with that, doesn't he? Do you think he'll give his sister car a little slingshot so that they can run a fast time?
He could, but, you know, to be honest, he's got to find 2 and a bit, well, nearly 2 seconds to even go from 6th out of 7th in class up to 5th. So I think it's all really, at this point, just about track time for Umeda in the second of the BMW Team Studio cars. Right, face on the screen, Brian Lee. He's had some really good runs this year. And at the moment, though, he's down in 4th place. Fleetingly, he went to the very top of the charts, but that was simply because by dint of them completing their first flying laps in sort of sequence, he's now down 1.566 seconds down. Okumura in 3rd place has just improved. He's 1.1 seconds down. Now, that is very, very good for the Birth Racing Project Mercedes. Very good looking livery. White with sort of, here we have it, white with red and silver grey markings on it. Being driven very tidily. But again, this is a car they've got accustomed to this season. And he and Daisuke Yamawaki, who'll be doing the second sector, share the cars. If you see close up, there are 2 other names on the roof. So it's driven in the Super Taiku series. And again, all these drivers, so many championships, national championships they can have in Japan. So they do get to know the circuits, particularly Fuji and Suzuka, the 2 most used circuits. So the circuit, not a strange to them. But picking up his pace again on this next lap. In fact, no, sorry, I tell you what, he's a quarter of a second down in the first sector, so he's not picking up his pace. Probably bringing it back round. 5 minutes still to go.
Ringo Chong in the Team iRace win is the only car that hasn't registered anything like a fast time, and they're currently in the pits, so there may be something wrong with that car.
Well, they've still got time. If they suddenly think, well, the tyre pressures we thought were right when it was wet this morning simply aren't right, they could be adjusting them. But we'll keep an eye on that, because that's certainly not Ringo's pace in 1:11. 81, I think the job is done for them. So Takayuki Kinoshita, you can see the little dolly jacks coming out. The car will be swung round, swivel back into the pit garage, which, of course, means they can then work on it with a suitable number of mechanics. Right, looking at Koichi Okimura. So he has found an improvement in the middle sector. I tried to sort of G him up by saying he'd gone faster in the first sector. Couldn't get the front end to turn in at that point on the circuit there. It was washing away from him, but let's see how he goes towards the end of this lap. He's coming down the final straight, the start-finish straight, up a gentle slope, about the point of the white line. It starts flattening out. There's a little climb from turn 16. Will he go into the 1 minute 50, lower 51s? No, very close to his best time, a quarter of a second down, but he's showing great consistency. So Brian Lee's going to be going out again, or just practicing the view of the lollipop. Very purposeful rumble, isn't it?
It was a bit of a rumble there.
AMG Mercedes,
nice
and I love it
squeak
in GT3 form.
Great natural sound there. We even heard a mobile phone go off.
Yeah, down there in the heart of the action, down in the pit lane. So what we have at the moment, the fastest car, number 81, Takayuki Kinoshita, is in the pit lane. The car just coming back out of the pit lane is the GTO Racing with TTR Mercedes. It's the middle position in the class. Car number 11, fourth fastest at the moment, 1.5 seconds down on the ultimate pace. Now, one thing we always have with this series is success penalties. And the good thing, it wasn't such a strong result for the GTO Racing entry, Brian Lee, last time out, so he has no success penalties. Whereas the Takayuki Kinoshita 81 BMW has to serve an extra 15 seconds at the pit stop for taking victory last time out. And that is an awful lot of corner cutting you have to do to achieve that. So you must say that Brian Lee is going to be fairly well set for a decent result without having to come in and make a pit stop and then stay for a longer period.
Kinoshita's car up on those dollies, as you're saying. Looks like they're taking a rest for the duration of this session with just over 2.5 minutes to go. Very satisfying outing.
Yeah, 2 of the 7 cars have called it today. At this rate, Ringo Chang, I hope it's not a mechanical problem. He's slowest of all, 6 seconds down, and that's not what we'd normally expect to find him. In fact, this morning,
still in the pits.
Yeah, he was 4th in class this morning, and that form probably would be repeated. But sitting in the pits, as you say, just over 2 minutes still to go. He could get out, whiz around. He'd have to be absolutely flat out to get around on his out lap and be able to start a flying lap before the checkered flag. I think that moment has passed. Right, who's improving out on the track? Umeda, car 82, that's the sister car. There we have it on circuit. He's picking up his pace. He's got to find 1.5 seconds to move up ahead of Kyo Chang, so he's 6th overall out of the 7 cars. But, oh dear, that middle sector for him is 2 seconds down on his very best. So a little bit of a glitch in that middle sector for him. So, at the moment, sitting in the pit lane, teammate in the BMW Team Studio M4, Takayuki Kinoshita, on pole by 0.541 of a second, half a second clear of Jean-Marc Merlin. Their job is pretty much done. In fact, Merlin is now in the pits as well. So, first and second, I think, is nailed down. But it really is a case of hats off for the number 19 crew. New to the championship, Koiki Yukimura, 3rd fastest at the moment. 0.3 of a second clear of Brian Lee. Brian Lee is out on track trying his very best to see if he can topple him, but it's been a good start. There's Jean-Marc Merlin's Mercedes parked in the pit lane along with the pace-setting BMW. Out of the car, moving away, and the first thing that Jean-Marc Merlin does, he replaces one hat with another. Off comes the helmet, and he puts on the flat cap immediately. Not often you find a Frenchman looking as though he's an Englishman out to shoot partridge, but that is the look that he favours.
We'll get a beret for him.
Very international man, but loves his racing, particularly in the Far East. He's started in endurance racing and historics, and just loves these GT cars. And it's always beautifully prepared by Craft Bamboo Racing with that lovely bright green on its flanks. So look at the clock, half a minute remains. Who's moving out on the track? Nobody has got what we call green on the screen. That means improvement in time. But I think Brian Lee, who's 4th fastest at the moment, might just find a position on his final flying lap. Burst Racing project still going around. No improvements around the course this lap. But we haven't had this for a while. A heat haze in that long shot down the start-finish straight. Let's see what this lap time
must be a mirage.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm imagining a heat haze. I'm delirious. But 12 months ago, it was around 40 degrees here. It was baking hot. How things change. But there we are. The checkered flag is out. Will there be an improvement later on? In fact, Okamura just improved his time. He found another 1/10 of a second. This has been a really, really impressive run. To come into this championship and go against the guys who've been setting the pace all season and be just over a second outside the ultimate pace, I think I'm very, very impressed with that from Okamura.
Left it late. It was the final sector that did the damage for
Yeah,
him.
no change of position. The checkered flag is out, and Brian Lee has not improved his position. He had that late run. He was a 0.15 of a second down on his very best. So, and in fact, right at the very end, fourth has become fifth because Keo Chang in 199, one of the two Team iRace.win Mercedes, has just toppled him. So that's better. 1.5 seconds cover the top five. The newcomer in the BMW team Studicamp, Umeda ends up in sixth overall, and Ringo Chong, clearly a problem, 6.2 seconds off the pace in the other entry from Team iRace. We're not the 199 we can see in the middle of our screen, but the sister car. We saw it out early on. It only completed 3 laps, came into the pits and did not re-emerge. Let's hope it's not a problem. And in fact, I see what the problem is right at the end. Not only an improvement from Keo Chang to go fourth in class, but Brian Lee had his best lap time removed for exceeding track limits. They're always watched. They have to stay within the white lines. He failed to do so. So that lap time was removed from him. That's why he's ended up down in fifth place overall. But also rising pace. Keo Chang really locked it together today. He's got a new teammate this weekend. Someone of whom I can tell you very little. Jouji, a driver from Taipei. But we'll get to see how he fares in the second session.
Yeah, these track limit issues are, well, they're a common infraction. I was enjoying watching a number of cars in different classes yesterday, just seeing that the variation in the line that they take through the hairpin, and yeah, some of them do go a little bit too wide, and the stewards will be watching that very carefully.
Yeah, if they think the driver is stealing an advantage by consistently going over the white lines. But the rule is there, it's all clear. But what we saw this morning was the track, though it's dried out considerably from their practice session, which started at 8 o'clock this morning, ran for half an hour. The fact that all these, vast majority of the GT runners, 5 of the 7, are now faster than the best of the GT3 times, shows you how much the track has changed. But this morning, what we could, this session now, what we could see, still track temperatures relatively low. Number of the drivers just still can't get the front in. We still can't see Mount Fuji, and certainly can't because we've got a graphic right in front of it now. But what we do see there is 1.5 seconds cover the top 5 runners. Problems for Ringo Chong's car down at the tail of the field. And then newcomers in the second of the BMWs. But it shows it's nice and close. It shows, though, yet again, that Takayuki Kinoshita, Sanaka Chikuchu are setting the pace in class. Don't forget, they will have a 15-second penalty when they head into the race. And the car that's second will have a 5-second penalty for its pit stop in this afternoon's race. Time added. And then the 2 newcoming cars, number 19, which is third fastest, and 82, which is sixth. As they're new to the championship, they get a 7-second stop. So suddenly it's looking rather good for number 11. I know it's down in 5th place, but the GTO Racing Mercedes has no pit stop penalty times. So that could work in their favour. Still means both drivers are going to have to drive like crazy, but it does mean it gives them more of a chance for a top result than otherwise.
For the established runners, the top 5 there, just 1.5 seconds, as I think you mentioned earlier, between all of them. So that augurs well for a very decent race later on today. 2 races this weekend, one today, one tomorrow. The weather forecast for today is, well, more than 50% rain, pretty much all afternoon. We're not seeing any at the moment, but don't be too surprised if that pops
but when
up.
you sit with an optimist like me, I can look at that picture and I can see, in fact, a much larger chink of blue sky, bottom screen, middle of screen.
Well,
but yeah, some people were talking 70% opportunity.
I'm not sure about your eyes. Are they really blue? I don't know. It could be
Bluey
dark.
grey.
Yeah.
Bluey grey, like my hair. So let's take a look at the highlights. Leading the way out, Jean-Marc Merlin. He meant business early on, and what we could see this weekend, great. Not just one BMW Team Studio entry, but 2 of the multicoloured M4s. And 2 of the Mercedes coming out for Team iRace.win. And we had a new car this weekend, I keep wanting to call it Birthing Pool for some reason. Birth Racing Project. Their Mercedes coming out to play and did a really, really good job. I have to try and shift that idea from my head. But out front, Jean-Marc Merlin set the pace early on, but the times kept really changing. This was a track, it was wet when they went out first thing this morning. And then it was drying out all the time, almost dry when they went out, but they didn't know exactly if there were damp patches. There's been a fair bit of track action. You can see a bit of water coming off the curbing there. Here's the new car, Birth Racing Project Mercedes. Driven very, very well indeed. Really impressed. Koichi Okumura knows the circuit, knows the car, but new to this championship. Welcome aboard. Very good job done. And would be right at the sharp end and kept on chipping away at his times. And if he didn't improve, they were close to his best. But for Takayuki Kinoshita, did everything he needed to do. He knows the team, he knows the car, he knows the circuit. He took pole by just over half a second, but he used his teammate to give him a tow. All the clever things you need to do to find an advantage when it's as close as it is in GT4 in Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia. Team iRace.win kept pitching in there, but it was Jean-Marc Merlin in the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes who would come home in second place in qualifying ahead of the brand new 19 Mercedes. So welcome to the championship for Birth Racing Project. Got stuck in, didn't see any mistakes out there, neat and tidy around the circuit. Plenty of twists, plenty of turns, but drivers by and large staying within the white lines because they know when rain has fallen, you go beyond them and you'll suddenly find it was slippery. Everybody behaved all the way through to the checkered flag, so we know the pole sitter for GT4 in the first of our two races here this weekend at Fuji Speedway. It's BMW Team Studio, car number 81, the driver Takayuki Kinoshita. Good session.
Yeah, and you can see during these highlights still some wet areas on the track, not dripping wet by any means, but let's call it damp. And when this biggest field we've had this year, gets out for the remainder of qualifying, when the pros and the pro-ams get out there, could be that some cars are pushed off the driver's line and have to just mess about on those damp areas. We could see a few incidents.
So very, very good job by everybody out there. They've laid down the markers now. The track is drying by the moment. I can see blue sky, no one else can. Those are the highlights, and already the cars are doing as they did before, because Craft Bamboo Racing, maybe by dint of being closest to pit exit, they like to get a bit of clear track. And Jean-Marc Merlin's had his hands prized from the steering wheel to hand over his new teammate this weekend, David Pun from Hong Kong, who's going to go out and see what he can do in qualifying. You don't need to be here in qualifying. Don't damage the car. We've got a race this afternoon, but with 7 cars in the GT4 class, up 1 from last weekend, they've got space to go and play, space to go out and get it right. Race control, looking at all the corners around the circuit, so many cameras for them to observe, and they will be watching that people stay within the white lines. Have you understood that? David Pun, off he goes from Hong Kong. He seems to be enjoying his first splash around the circuit. Well, they're ready for everything, not just
prepared.
BMW team student. They absolutely love it. I like the fact he's got several layers of BMW racewear, and quite wise. Still, we can't see the top of Mount Fuji, but is that blue sky up there? No, I'm just joking, Steve. It is. It's getting brighter.
I think it might be, you know.
As I walked to the commentary position, I suddenly thought, I can see shadows. So here we are, the second qualifying session for Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia. This is for the GT4 class. The 7 cars we have seen, and we're going to see all over again. And if we run down, well, here's the 111, and this is the one driven out by Satya Santoso, Indonesian racer. He's sharing that with Ringo Chong. And this was the car that had the problem parked in the pit lane, so we don't know what it was, but the good news is that has clearly been sorted. Well, let's hope it's clearly been sorted, because the car is back on the track. So first qualifying run for the second of the BMWs. That's the new 82 entry, and that's now in the hands of Shinsaki Masahiko Ida.
Try and keep you up to date with how Santoso goes, see if that car does make it round for one lap, and see if it can register something approaching a fast time. Oh, that's throaty.
It's a much harder engine, though, isn't it? The Mercedes is quite mellifluous, which is a word I use quite a lot these days.
Please explain.
I'll get on to you later.
Okay.
A lovely, sweet-sounding meli, as in Greek for honey. Did you know that?
No.
There you go. Live and learn nothing with me. So, the car that's already taken 1 pole position this weekend, that's the number 81, the regular car from BMW Team Studio. Great to have them with a second car. And car 19 and now in the hands of Daisuke Yamawaki. Well, it might just be the camera angle, but it looks like he's getting stuck in very early on. Bear in mind, it's third in GT4. Yeah, he's definitely getting that a bit of body angle out there. So Daisuke Yamawaki winding it up, seeing where he can place it. This could be interesting. Third fastest in the first session. Change of drivers, and he's already out there on their outlap. All 7 cars straight out onto their outlap. That is good news. Nobody lingering in the pit lane at the moment.
Big boost up the hill. Yamawaki gone quickest in Sector 1 so far. Early days, of course, but certainly going for it, as you said.
Weather conditions changing all the time. I'm just looking at they're actually getting a bit of glint off the front wings of the Birth Racing Project Mercedes, so it is getting bright. I am such an optimist, but it doesn't matter, the track is dry. Always going out into bits that might not be quite so dry. Anybody will tell you when you do your first racing school course or whatever, don't go on the curbing when it's rain, because that's where the moisture tends to hang. It depends on the level of paint, and also if you've got a serrated curbing on the outside. He's almost inventing new lines as he goes. So Daisuke Yamawaki has so far set fastest first sector. Still waiting for this first flying lap to be completed, but I must say, just again, I think it's very wise to keep the car the focus of the cameras around the circuit, because I'm very impressed so far. Look, right to the edge, that's fine. If all four wheels are over the white line, then they will start paying full attention in race control. But Daisuke going very well. Fastest car in Sector 2 is one of only a few cars that have gone through Sector 2, but it's David Punn in the Craft Bamboo Racing, the 77 Mercedes. So both newcomers to the championship really making quite a stab at it. But I'll have to keep my eyes on Sanaka Chikuchu in the car, the 81 BMW that's got pole for race 1. We're now trying to define the grid for tomorrow's race, the Sunday race here at Fuji Speedway. And I must say that Daisuke Yamawaki at this moment looking so he could actually trouble the GT4 front row. Let's see.
A little bit twitchy at the front end as he just piles on the pace coming out of the corners.
Well, this is the final corner, turn 15, Panasonic corner, where very tidy. His teammate had the front washing away from him, didn't get the car to turn in as he wanted. Maybe it's now just that marginally drier, but let's see what the first flying lap on the board. David Punn, 1 minute 52.1. Jouji, 1 minute 53.4. How good is that? Yamawaki only third, 153.6. It looked quicker than that. Let's see what he can wind up to.
Look at this, down the hill into the very basin and then up a hill. These wonderful elevation changes at Fuji. If you're going to get elevation changes anywhere, you'd expect it in this mountainous region, and the track really mirrors the surrounding scenery, doesn't it?
Yeah, when you come in the main gate, which is now the bottom gate, you climb and climb and climb past a kart circuit, past a wet weather driving circuit, to practice your car control, and keep on climbing, you get to the paddock, and then you turn around, and on a good day you've got a fabulous view. But actually looking at the performance element circuit, this is a fabulous view, because Sanaka Chikuchu is pink in the first sector, pink in the second sector. Coming up to the final corner, turn 15, Panasonic corner. Nice, neat turn in, not too extravagant on the exit, gets it pointing straight, the power is down. So the BMW M4, his teammate was 1 minute 50 point, I can't remember quite what, but 1 minute 50 point something. And how good is this lap from Chikuchu? Surely that's going to put him top of the chart. Waiting for time to come onto the screen. Yes, 1 minute 51.086, fastest in all three of the three sections around the circuit. So he's fastest from David Punn from Craft Bamboo Racing, almost precisely 1 second to the good. Still waiting for Masahiko Ida in the sister car, the 82 BMW from BMW Team Studio, to register a time, but that is a good advantage. And another flying lap, a second flying lap from the 77 Mercedes. David Punn making a really good impression. He's now down to 3/4 of a second down. He's gained another 1/4 of a second, stayed second, but he's catching up. But then again, he's done 2 flyers against the one from Sanaka Chikuchu.
Here's Jouji coming in, currently third.
No improvement in time, but you've got to say he's close. He's just 3/100ths of a second down on his very best. Let himself down somewhat in the second of the 3 sectors. But again, it's when drivers arrive in a championship, teams want to see speed from them, but they want to see consistency as well. And 300ths of a second, I think he gets a house point for accuracy there.
Yeah, he's just dropped to 4th though, because Yamawaki's popped up ahead of him in 3rd.
Okay, what we have, 81 ahead of 77, ahead of 19, and that is the order as it was at the end of the first qualifying session. So it's BMW Team Studi, Craft Bamboo Racing, and the newcomers, the Birth Racing Project, with their white and red Mercedes.
Santoso's leapt up from 5th to 4th as well, so Chi's now dropped down to 5th.
4th Santoso, 5th Chi, and Masahiko Ida in the 82 BMW, separated by only about half a second, 3/4 of a second between all three of them. But Sanaka Chikuchi, he's not satisfied with 1 minute 51. Frankly, I wouldn't be either. And he's going faster and faster. Purple in the first sector, pinky purple. Second sector, the same, faster than anybody else. He's going to get down into 1 minute 50s. Not into 149s. How low will he go? Let's see. A few more meters to go. 1 minute 50.994. In fact, his final sector was not a good one. Presumably didn't get a good turn into that vital final corner. And with such a long start-finish straight here, if you don't get your exit properly done as you leave the final corner, it's going to affect you the whole way around. Now looking at Setio and Santoso, picking up the pace. He's improved in the first and second sectors. He needs to find corner about half a second, might move him ahead of Yamawaki in the Birth Racing Project Mercedes. And down in the pits, all eyes on the screens. Team iRace.win. Their cars at the moment 4th and 6th out of the 7 cars coming out to play. But maybe if this final sector proves a good one for the Indonesian racer, he may improve and go up. But he's down in 5th now because suddenly Jouji,
it's all happening around him.
199 is not hanging around, sharing with Kyo Chang. First time in the championship, he has gone into 3rd place, 1.4 seconds down on that flying BMW. And fly it continues to do. Sanaka Chikuchu improves in the first of the 3 sectors. Setiawan Santoso down to 5th place. Will he find a quarter of a second or so to go up into 4th? It's changing all the time.
Beating his own time.
Goes up to 3rd overall, just a whisker ahead of Jouji. So Joe fleetingly had his hand on the 3rd place qualifying position. Now it's gone away from him. David Punn not improving this time around. He's 2nd fastest overall. Really impressed. Only half a second down on Setiawan Santoso. An improvement last time around. This time not looking as good, but I think that's a really impressive job. He's half a second down on Sanaka Chikuchu, but he's still 0.8 of a second clear of the 3rd place runner, which is the 111 Mercedes. So very, very impressed with David Punn here.
Yeah, Chikuchu's looking like he might improve on his best time right at the top of the leaderboard there.
Well, all of the runners, all 7, have set decent representative times. We had Ringo Chong, unfortunately, in 111 sitting in the pit garage, or the pit lane, for much of that first qualifying session. His car now is going very well indeed in the hand of his teammate Santoso, who's 3rd fastest, looking for other changes on the board. Well, it's a 1 minute 50.655 for the 81 BMW now. BMW team Studi with Sanaka Chikuchu at the wheel. Improving. David Punn just improves again. Didn't improve in the 1st or the 2nd sector. Came good in that final sector. So just as Sanaka Chikuchu tries to pull away, he pulls away from Santoso. Now nearly a second down in the 111 Mercedes. But the sister car, the 199, came up to start, finish straight. Jouji at the wheel. Can he go up a position? Yes, he does. He goes up to 3rd. This is chopping and changing the way we don't normally get in the GT4 class. So again, great fun out on the circuit here at the Fuji Speedway. Just under 5 minutes remaining. 1st to 7th at the moment, that's the 82 BMW with Masahiko Ida at the wheel, just under 3 seconds top to bottom. But 3 cars now covered by 8 tenths at the top of the charts.
This track clearly drying out, laying a little bit of rubber down. We're bound to see a lot of these G3 cars go under 150, I think. These times tumbling.
I think we may have. I don't think we're going to get under there actually, Steve.
Don't you think so?
I think we've had the best out of the tyres. They're loving action at Craft Bamboo Racing. Jean-Marc Merlin, he did a really good job in that first session. Frankie sitting in the back, pointing at screens. Just look at the points overall. Sorry, that's the overall. Sorry, I was looking at the points for a second. Right, 50.6, 1 minute 50.655 seconds. That's 7 tenths of a second clear. Craft Bamboo Racing cruising in now. David Punn has done a very, very good job. So Jean-Marc Merlin will be very happy indeed with that. They look as though they're good for 2nd place on the grid in both this afternoon's race and tomorrow's. But have I got ahead of myself? What are we going to see from number 11, Tony Fong? Don't forget, this is the car that will start with no success penalties against it, no extra time to serve at the pit stop. So that could come to their benefit in the race, but at the moment, 2.5 seconds off the pace. And nice pointing to the screen there from Steve Dawson, because he's spotted the fastest first sector of anyone has just been done by a driver out on the track at the moment, the 199 Mercedes with Jouji, the newcomer from Taipei, really making it work for him, but then he's done a very, very slow 2nd sector. Extraordinarily
slow 2nd sector. It's almost as if he's just satisfied with that sector one time and then we'll put it to bed now.
I think he had the windows open, was waving to his fans. So delighted with the pace. But it's really impressive. David Punn and Jouji, 2nd and 3rd fastest, but putting in some really, really good cameo rolls. In fact, yes, that time, no good at all. Didn't come into the pits, but it's a question of how fast he was on the start-finish straight. Is he going to go for another lap further round, or is he happy with 3rd in class?
Still over 2.5 minutes to go, plenty of time.
But Tony Fong is the one who's most likely to improve because he hasn't put it in early on. The track is now, well, the BMW is in the pits, the 81 car that's got provisional pole position. But the times are just not coming for Tony Fong. His teammate Brian Lee tends to be the faster of the pair. No improvements for him, but Setiawan Santoso has just improved his time. Needs to find another few, well, literally a couple of hundreds, and he'll go up into 3rd, but just behind his teammate. So Jouji, 3rd for Team iRace.win. Setiawan Santoso still 4th, but closing the gap. We've got 0.86 of a second. That's really not very much at all, covering the top 4 cars in the 7 who've come out to play in the GT4 class. 2 minutes remaining. Who is improving on time? Satya Santoso improved last time around, is improving this time around. He's had the fastest time through the speed trap, 251 kilometres an hour. So really going very well for Team iRace.win with the second of their Mercedes. And also improving last time around was the newcoming car, the Birth Racing Project Mercedes, handed over to Daisuke Yamawaki. 5th fastest, but he's chipping away.
Here's Santoso, top speed, as you say, on the circuit so far.
Yeah, slightly up in the first sector, but comprehensively down in that middle sector, 0.9 of a second. So don't expect an overall improvement. But yeah, such an impressive time down the start-finish straight through the speed trap. But Team iRace.win, I think they'll be fairly pleased with 3rd and 4th on the charts as it stands. Will Yamawaki go past them in the Birth Racing Project Mercedes? Well, the time is running short, and certainly no improvements out there on the track this time around for Yamawaki. Says Johan Santoso. The start-finish straight, of course, when you come to Fuji Speedway, you get used to the fact it's got a very long start-finish straight. It used to be longer at both ends. In the olden days, of course, Seyfried Santoso would have been able to continue past turn 1 into the banking that's cut into the side of the mountain. And fantastic bank curve. I mean, totally using the terrain, called the Speedway for one clear reason. It was supposed to be a mighty big oval.
It is an enormous straight, isn't it? We were just assessing the length of the grandstand, which doesn't accommodate the entire straight by any means yesterday. We assessed maybe 3 football pitches at least in length.
Well, the straight is just short of a mile, 1.5 kilometres. And certainly when you go out for a track run, you've worked your way back up the hill. And I don't suppose we'd still be running, Steve, frankly. Go up the hill, 15 seconds until the checkered flag will be out. And I don't think we're going to see any further changes. Looks as though it's a BMW 1-1, I suppose. They won the first qualifying session. They'll be on pole for this afternoon's race. And in the hands of Sanaka Jukuchu, he has matched what his teammate Takayuki Kinoshita did in qualifying session number 1. 7/10 of a second clear, but second through to 4th, covered by a 1/10 of a second. Absolutely nothing between newcomer David Pan in the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes, Jouji in the 199 Mercedes we're looking at now from Team iRace.win, and his teammate Seyfried Santoso, who got super close. And they will all be heading now to Parc Fermé.
At least with that very fast first sector time, Santoso showed that he can pull something out of the bag. Probably just had to decide to ease off, or perhaps a little problem with the car that's not too significant, but gives him some confidence.
I think so too, and for Jouji, a lot of others, if they realised they weren't improving, might have just pulled into the pits. But he might as well have another lap in the car, get more used to the car, the team, and everything, as he's a newcomer sharing this weekend late entry along with Kyo Chang. Kyo's they've had a number of drivers in that second car, but rotating them through, giving them GT racing experience. And let's face it, who wouldn't want to come out and compete on the Fuji Speedway? What a fantastic circuit. Right, if you just come in, you hadn't had the first shot of the Birth Racing Project Mercedes. Here is the second shot. Driven very well indeed by Daisuke Yamawaki. Looked really positive early on, but I don't know. I was convinced the car was going to go higher than it ended up. 5th overall, 1.6 seconds off the pace, but it certainly seemed to be attacking. I don't know where the car was losing out, but still the gold standard. BMW Team Studi and their M4 has taken pole for tomorrow's race, as well as today's now. An 82, that's the new sister car. Slowest of all, 2.6 seconds off the pace, but very close to the GTO Racing Mercedes. They've got less than 1/10 of a second covering them down at the tail of the field. So the track drying out, we'll have a handful of minutes, and then we'll have the GT3 runners will come out. We'll have 24 of those, best field of the year, 31 cars in all when sharing it with the GT4 runners. Mount Fuji still hiding its lights, and here is the final qualifying position for tomorrow's race, when driver 2, who set the times in this session, will take the start and then hand over to the drivers who will be starting this afternoon in race number 1. 7/10 of a second, Sanaka Jukuchu ahead of David Pan. Jouji, newcomer, really impressive in 3rd place, and Seyfried Santoso was 4th fastest, very close indeed. And then the Birth Racing Project Mercedes, 5th fastest, good solid run, and very close down at the tail of the field, but with Tony Fong just holding off the newcoming car from BMW Team Studi. So 2 qualifying sessions done, no mishaps out on the circuit, and we will hold fast. Race control, they'll be dreaming of coffee, but watching the screens But they'll have plenty to keep them awake when we have the 24 GT3 runners coming out to hit the circuit. It's going to be very, very busy. What we had in GT4, well, let's take a look at the highlight. They had plenty of space to get their own laps in. But when we have the GT3 runners, all 24 of them, suddenly the track is going to feel very crowded indeed. But looking at the highlights, as in session number 1, the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes first onto the track with David Punn, newcomer from Hong Kong, leading the way out. Another an entirely new team, Birth Racing Project, with their white Mercedes. This is the turn of Daisuke Yamawaki and car 1-1. Setty Juan Santoso started to wind it up early on, trying to get the laps in, and certainly the track drying all the time. Dry to the look, but I would suggest now dry to the feel. And the Birth Racing Project Mercedes being driven with gusto by Daisuke Yamawaki. Certainly seems to be pushing on. And a car that looks effortless to work its way to the top of the class, 81. Already took pole in qualifying session number 1, and Sanaka was determined to do the same. He started really setting some very quick lap times indeed to go to the top of the charts. But what impressed me was the fight back from those behind, seeing how hard they could push the BMW Team Studi M4. And they all had a crack at it, but it was David Punn in the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes that proved to be the best. And he kept chipping away at his time. It wasn't one flying lap that did for him. He did a whole series, very consistent speed as well. Team iRace.win with their 2 Mercedes ended up 3rd and 4th with Setty Juan Santoso. Here he is in the 1-1-1, putting in really, really good lap times. 2nd, 3rd and 4th, covered by just a 10th of a second. It's going to be competitive out there. No wonder they were looking at the screens, talking to their walkie-talkies in the pit garages, because they were determined to see if they could get what we call the GT4 front row. The GT4 runners will start at the tail of the GT3 field, certainly the more powerful cars clearly going to be somewhat further ahead, but it's all about bragging rights. It's all about trying to put one over your opposition. David Punn, newcomer to Craft Bamboo Racing, really did not put a wheel wrong. Ended up 0.7 of a second down on Sanaka Chikuchi's BMW. Really, really good job. And Jouji, newcomer in 1199, ended up 3rd fastest overall. So some new faces in new places, and really, really putting in some strong qualifying runs there, which augurs very well indeed for this afternoon's race and Sunday's race here at the Fuji Speedway. That is the end of qualifying session number 2. So, hold fast. GT3 runners set to come out and play. Cars starting to line up for GT3 qualifying session number 1, and keen to get out on the circuit and lay down the rubber. The 888 Racing Mercedes, Prince Abdul Rahman Ibrahim, Jeffrey Ibrahim as we know him. First full season of racing, and from the opening round in his home country at Sepang, he has really impressed. Now he's got to show what he can do, and his teammate Jasmine Jafar was in fact fastest of all the cars this morning, but their lap times completely irrelevant. Top of the pile on a track that was wet, it was starting to dry, but I think we're going to see about 10 seconds, if not more, taken off their times from this morning. And to track be fair, now looks fully dry, Steve.
Well, they were pretty close. It was only 6/100ths of a second separating the 888 Race Engineering team and Absolute Racing with Tanat Satyantirakel and Philip Hamprecht. And then just a further 10th to the 3rd fastest. So they're all pretty tight there in that final practice.
Well, it was. The top dozen were covered by the top second, so it shows how super, super tight it is. But you talked of Hamprecht and Tanat Satyantirakel. Well, they're topping the championship coming here to Fuji Speedway, so every point they could possibly put in their pocket is a good one. And they, well, let's see what they can do, because the 911 is their car. 911 is a car that will serve 5 extra seconds at their pit stop. But let's not talk about pit stop penalties for now. Let's focus on what lies ahead. That's the championship leading car. Number 12, that's one of 2 Audis entered by Absolute Racing, along with their 2 Porsches, so very, very busy. The number 12 car, you know, sometimes doesn't get all the luck it deserves. Certainly Wyron Tan, who will be starting this session, and Martin Rump were really, really strong 2 weeks ago at Suzuka. Let's see what they can do here. Waiting for the clock to tick. The first 12 cars lining up in the pit lane. You can see the orange wing of the McLaren 720S. That went well this morning. That was inside the top 10 runners. So, you know, plenty. In fact, it was inside the top 10 because it was 10th, but it was only 3/4 of a second off the ultimate pace. So, plenty of scope for the manufacturers to be mixed around. Just to let you know how it was at the top, we had Mercedes from Porsche from Lamborghini. That's not too bad. Another Mercedes in 4th. then an Audi in 5th. 4 manufacturers in the top 5 positions. Shows the balance of performance is absolutely spot on. The metallic blue sister car, the number 13, sister to the 12 car we've just seen. Sun Jing-Su will be kicking that one off in this qualifying session. Just to reiterate, 15 minutes of qualifying, 7-minute break, and then their teammates will take over and go out to work out the grid for tomorrow's race. This is to define the grid for this afternoon's race. So right now the clock has ticked around to 10 past 11 here at the Fuji Speedway, and our race this afternoon will kick off at 3:45.
You mentioned the 5-second success penalty that Absolute Racing will suffer. Panther, AAS Motorsport with Intra Fuvazak and Alessandra Imperatori, 10 seconds for them, and Craft Bamboo 15 seconds, Jeffrey Lee and Alessio Picariello.
Well, welcome back to that particular entry you just mentioned there. The number 918 Porsche, Alex Imperatori, fresh, if you can say that, back from the Nürburgring 24 hours. That's why he didn't come and compete at Suzuka. But these drivers, GT drivers, in huge demand around the world, the top GT drivers, and great to have them coming to play here. Always a front runner in the AM class is the AMAC Lamborghini, Andrew McPherson's car, but it must be said this morning, I think that was somewhat down in the AM class. Let me see, 3rd in class. Top in the AM class this morning was LM Corsa with its Porsche. Joined us last time round, Kei Nakanishi and Shigegatsu Wakisaka. Kei going out in the first part of qualifying.
Some very good-looking cars here in this session.
Why do I like it? Because it's metallic blue, you see. I've got a real soft spot, but very, very sharp livery on the T2 Motorsport Ferrari. T2 car keeps swapping its drivers around. We've got 3 drivers rotating, but a car that's been right at the sharp end of the championship. Roloff Bruins, that's a number of teammates, and this weekend the Solite Indigo Racing Mercedes will be shared again with Manuel Metzger, back for his 2nd bash in the championship, having had a very successful run in Thailand.
About 10 seconds till we get started, I understand, Bruce. Rearing to go, and that heat haze is back.
Yeah, 11:12 is the time we need to start. It's 11:12.
Green.
They lost 2 seconds of the qualifying session there.
Vital time loss.
So out we go again. Look at the manufacturers. Out comes a Mercedes, out comes a Porsche, Lamborghini from Vincenzo's Sospiri Racing, Car Guy Racing. They're just built. They run their cars from just outside the circuit. And boy, that is bright.
I think that's the sunshine you thought you were seeing.
That's it. It's the glow off the cars. So again, a Ferrari, and in behind the one McLaren. I think we might have some more of those next year. Certainly going very well indeed. It's a real mix of cars. The Audis, the black Lamborghini in there looks very sinister indeed. That's the Vitana Motorsport car, kicked off by Chonsawat Asanahami. So, as we pointed out, the GT4 runners didn't have to make their space. It was there for them to play in. But what we're going to have here is someone's going for a very early flying lap. They're going to have to make, look, already the car that was first out of the pit lane in the hands of the Prince of Johor, Jeffrey Ibrahim, as his racing name is on the side of the car, has been passed by one of the Porsches that wanted that track space. Other runners are just waiting to go out sort of half a lap later, then they'll have space of their own to play, but in turn they'll be getting up to pace as the quick cars are rocketing through. And it's Tanat Satya and Thirikal that's leading the field around in that number 911 Porsche. This is what you don't want. You don't want to be nose to tail. You need to get your own space. It's one thing getting a tow down the start-finish straight. It's another tripping up. Now we've got several, 3 new cars in GT3 this weekend. 390 is one of those. And it's the Lamborghini from Success Racing. Tomotsu Kondo is doing the first session, then handing over to Motoharu Sato, so that's good to have out on circuit. Other new runners in the GT3 class, that's the 390. The 777 car guy racing car we saw glowing in the pit lane. Takeshi Kimura is kicking off. And an Audi, number 83, X-Works, kicked off by Philip Tang from Hong Kong. But welcome back on board Sean Thong, such a strong runner at the very sharp end of the championship in 2017. Very entertaining driver, very entertaining both in and out of the car, so great to have him back on board this weekend. But the car that was set the first flying lap is the car we're going to get number 911. Thai racer Tanat Satya and Thirikal having an absolutely fantastic season. That's why he and his teammate Philip Hamprecht are leading the championship. And look at the confidence. He's pushed his way to the front of the queue quite legitimately, and he's not hanging around. His first out lap, picking up the pace, and now he's just banged in the fastest first sector time of anyone. But the car I think we might have to watch is Daniel Au, who's 2 places further back down the track, but the Lamborghini, number 666, is fastest of anybody through the first sector. Okay, only a handful of them have done it so far. About 10, I think, have now gone through the first sector. But fastest of all is the white Lamborghini with the yellow and blues flashes up its flanks. But now Tanart Satya Thirikul has come up against another car in front of him. That's not what he wanted to do, as he's trying to bang in this flying lap. Yeah, he's in behind the Solite Indigo Racing Mercedes car right at the sharp end of the field, but unfortunately, well, very well driven. Saw 911 coming through, saw possibly wave blue flags, maybe not. We can't see the edges of the circuit there, but that was polite and good to see in this championship. Could have stayed there, could have wrecked the flying lap of the car that is clearly going to be one of the contenders.
Got someone else to deal with now.
It's his own teammate.
Yeah.
You never know how that's going to go, really. Wambo, Chinese racer in front of the tie, Tanart Satya Thirikul, but I think they're running different agendas because Wambo is just completing his first lap out of the pits. No flying lap for him. That will be starting now, but Tanart Satya Thirikul, 1 minute 43.827, so that's already 8.5 seconds quicker than the best of this morning's times on a wet circuit. Right in behind his teammate Wambo. Got a little bit of a tow from him down that start-finish straight, but if that's only fine if Wambo is now fully up to speed as he goes around his first flying lap, and I think he probably is. That could be okay. So it's Markos Seyfried, welcome on board. Championship this weekend. Markos Seyfried joining Hub Auto Corsa is second fastest, 9/10, all for second down. Biren Bakti in car 61, the McLaren is third fastest. That's the best run of the year for them, but these times are going to change and keep on changing. And Jeffrey Ibrahim, we saw him first out of the pits in that 888 Racing Mercedes. He is fourth fastest, and Jouji, car number 17, the Anstone Racing Mercedes. That's blue with the yellow, orange and red splodges on it. So flamboyant in livery, flamboyant in form.
Seyfried in second, as you say. He's already
had a rotation. That's not good at all. And that's Jingsu's son. Shares with Frankie Chen Kung Fu. He's done his first lap. That was the start of his flying lap. Oh dear, dropped it. Will continue. Might have damaged his tyres.
Just mentioning Seyfried, who registered the second fastest time. He's gone very quick in the first sector as well. So we'll see if he can improve upon that. Satya Thirikul still at the top.
Well, the German racer is a hired hand with global reputation, and not surprised to see him in. Here is his car, pushing on very, very well indeed. Sharing with Yuya Sakamoto. He's got a good set of eyes on him. He could find the place to put his tray after lunch yesterday when the rest of the team couldn't see where they were supposed to put it afterwards. Eagle eyes, hawk-eyed, these drivers.
The acid test.
It is. So, who's really going? Well, the McLaren just banged in the fastest middle sector of anyone. It's third at the moment in the hands of Piti Virambakti, the Thai racer, and I really think they're starting to get a grip with that, but it's still Tanart Satya Thirikul at the top of the table. Will he be top up by Markos Seyfried? Did Marco improve that time around? No, he did not, but suddenly we've got the McLaren top of the charts. There it is, glowing in the start-finish straight. Orange, blue and yellow, Singer livery on board, but for Piti Virambakti, this will be real vindication for opting for McLaren. Lots of others went the more tried and tested Mercedes route. Now Tanart Satya Thirikul is giving chase, has just put in the fastest first sector of anybody. This is far from over.
Biren Bakti's second sector well faster than anybody else, almost a second quicker than anyone else has done that part of the track, so well deserving of that top spot.
Car 918, Vuti gone into the Fuvasak, and his teammate rejoined this weekend by Alex Imperator. He's tucked in behind the JRM Porsche there. That's possibly going to slightly obstruct it, but let's see. At the moment, it's Biren Bakti in the top of the chart. So we've got, well, how's that? If you're a Thai, great, look at that.
Looks
three
good,
Thai drivers, Biren Bakti, Satya Thirikul and Fuvasak, top three positions, almost covered by a second, but Tanart Satya Thirikul starting to pick his way forward to 980. There's into Fuvasak. He won't like to be the third fastest Thai driver. Bronze medal position, but he's trying to wind it up, but he is getting all sorts of traffic, and now an interloper. We said it looked good in the pits. It's never gone that well in the qualifying session, but suddenly we've got the T2 Motorsport Ferrari up into third place with David Chipto Biantoro. And now I welcome Wambo. He's got the shortest name of the top 5 runners.
Quite comforting.
He just popped into third position. Now Rolf Bruins, who was somewhat late out of the pits. He was sort of starting his first flying lap as others were finishing theirs. He's gone up into what was third position, has become fourth. This is chopping and changing all the time. Markos Seyfried, we saw him early in the session. He's gone back into second place overall. But that lap from Tanart Satya, what happened while I was looking at the screen right there, Biren Bakti was top of the chart. Seyfried went in ahead of him, but Saturn Theorical went to the very top. The 911 Porsche did manage to make the space. Now look, two Porsches side by side. It's Vuitton gone in through Fuvasak, who 1 moment ago was third. He's now down in 10th.
Yeah,
but he will improve, but only to 9th. Right, 2 seconds from first to the very sharp end. What that lap from Tanat Satya and Theorical really did was just show why he's the championship leader. He's 7/10 now, 6/10 clear, because David Y.N. Chen, new teammate for him this weekend, and Rahel Frey, we'll get to her in session number 2, has got that Audi, the 999 Audi from Audi Sport Asia team TSRT, into second place, just 10th of a second ahead of Seyfried's Ferrari. And now it changes again. The blue Audi from Absolute Racing, Wyron Tan, goes into second place. So we're Porsche from Audi. Suddenly the Audis are coming good. Then the Ferrari in 5th, and Burit Birenbakhti, who had that moment in the sun in his McLaren, still 5th.
We'll have to watch Satya Theorical again. Very nice middle sector. Let's see if he can beat that fastest time, 1:42.110.
He's going into the 141s. Come on, he must be. Start-finish line coming up right now. 1:42.110 becomes 1:41.4. He's 1.2 seconds ahead of Wear and Tan. Rolf Bruins reacts. He's only 0.8 of a second clear. That surely is enough. 6 minutes remaining in this session. Rolf Bruins going faster and faster. Done 1 flying lap fewer than Tanat Satya and Theorical. But Theorical's lap not only been quick, he's picked his way through traffic. He worked the traffic to his advantage, or Motorpoint didn't let it trip him up.
I bet Philip Hamprecht, waiting in the wings, can't wait to get in that Porsche. It looks very fast indeed.
Looking now at Daniel Au, at the very start of the session, he was 3rd fastest in his Lamborghini. At the moment, he's down in 7th, and he's got traffic. He's in behind the car that's 3rd fastest, Rolf Bruins. Who again, we saw him being polite right from the start of the session. He's been polite again, so the Korean racer not getting in the way of Daniel Au. First second only covers the top 4, and that's because Tanat Satya Theorical is 8/10 clear. The next 3 cars covered by 10th of a second. Markos Seyfried in the Hub Auto Corsa Ferrari. 97, Rolf Bruins, the driver who just pulled out of the way, still like Indigo Racing Mercedes. And 999, the TSRT Audi, in the hands of David Y.N. Chen. So they're very, very close indeed. In fact, they've just been joined by trying to work out who it is. Wyron Tan has gone into second place, 0.574 seconds down on Tanat Satya Theorical. So the number 12 Audi, that's looking very, very strong indeed. He's got a really strong driver lineup with Martin Rump to take it over.
Alex Howe in the 666 car has gone much, much quicker than anyone else through the speed trap, but I wonder if he had problems braking after that, because he's still lingering in 8th.
He's lingering in traffic. He's in behind the 888 Racing Mercedes. Won't help anyone at all. But Jeffrey Ibrahim keeping out the way there very kindly. He's 15th on the charts. Is Jeffrey going to improve this time around? No, he's not. I don't see any improvements on the board for him. Don't think there's going to be improvement for Al. He's down in 10th place overall. He's 1.7 seconds down. Car 97 under investigation for exceeding track limits. That's the car in 3rd place, the Indigo Racing Mercedes. Rolf Bruins is going to want to hang on to that 3rd fastest time. It's in the hands of the stewards now. Looking for improvements. None coming from the car that's fastest. The number 12 Audi into 2nd place now. Wyron Tan. How good is his lap? No improvements from in Sector 1 or Sector 2. The car in 3rd place, Rolf Bruins, got out of the way and then set that very good 1st sector time. He may gain a 10th of a second. That's all he needs to move up into 2nd place on the grid for this afternoon's race. Wyron Tan cruising in, no improvement from him. He's 2nd fastest at the moment, not going to be defending that position at this sort of pace. In fact, is he coming in so totally slow he's got a problem? Was he looking to try and find track space? Well, let's see on that one. So it's Tanat Satya and Theorical, a series of good laps. He's 0.574 of a second clear of Wyron Tan. Rolf Bruins is tucked in behind. Markos Seyfried, a series of good runs for him in the Hub Auto Corsa Ferrari. He's 4th fastest.
Just over 3 minutes left of this particular session before the drivers swap around.
I can't see anybody toppling Tanat Satya and Theorical. Rolf Bruins did a really good 1st sector, but not such a good middle sector. Doesn't look as though improvements coming from him. Looking on screen at Jeffrey Ibrahim, 888 Racing Mercedes. Looks good, but at the moment he's down in 16th position. He's just lost a place to Nakanishi's Ferrari.
Remember, it was his car being driven by Jasman Jafar that was quickest in final practice, but Jeffrey Ibrahim down in 16th at the moment.
Sorry, Nakanishi's Porsche, not mad. It's the other Corsa car, getting ahead of myself. So no difference there. Who is picking up the pace? Markos Seyfried just improved his time last time around. He's 8/10 of a second down on the pace. Still can't topple Rolf Bruins, Wyron Tan, and most notably Tanat Satya at the very, very top of the charts. Amazingly, the car that is 21st
so just looking at that.
has set the fastest time on the start-finish straight. That's the newcomer, the Success Racing Lamborghini, but clearly its setup might be more favourable, less favourable when it comes to the cornery bits, of which there are 15.
Broken
around,
through the 260 mark, 270 kilometres an hour.
Bear in mind the fastest time by the car on pole position is nearly 10 kilometres down on that ultimate run through the speed trap, so a better setup. And the car down in 19th position, Jeffrey Lee. This is a car that's been at the sharp end of the field, brought it home to victory last time out the second race at Suzuka, but building on just a fabulous run by his teammate, but at the moment languishing down towards the tail of the field. The Craft Bamboo 88 Mercedes, Alessio Picariello, a driver who frequently sort of puts that at the very sharp end of the field, but big improvements coming from Jeffrey Lee. Big improvements are needed, however.
Jeffrey Lee in 19th spot, 3.5 seconds off the top pace.
Yeah, but his teammate took pole last time out, and that's what gave them the opportunity to bid for victory in the second race. But they will be serving 15 extra seconds at a pit stop for taking that win in race 2 at Suzuka. And as soon as they've done that, you then go back to 0 again, so you won't carry on into any further races unless they get into the top 3 finishers. So, into the final minute, Tanat Satya just over half a second clear of the pack. Jeffrey Lee is clearly going to make big strides from his 3.6 seconds down overall, splitting the gap to about 15th, up to 14th. Well done. The guessing game, I do like it. And meanwhile, Markos Seyfried, glad we're looking at him. He's just set the fastest middle section of anyone last time around. He's now starting the following lap. He's down in 5th place. It's good because what's happened is Wan Bo has just put in the 3rd fastest time. So Wan Bo in the 912 Porsche, 2 places behind his teammate, the other Absolute Racing Porsche. This is the 918 one we're looking at the screen. Fuji gone in through Fuvasak, at one moment was 3rd, fallen to 10th, he's now up to 9th, and improving last time around. That's why he's moved up a very, very small amount, just ahead of Christina Nielsen in another of the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes, so 9th and 10th.
Worth keeping an eye on Seyfried. Into a pretty quick first sector, I must say. Second sector, not too bad.
Well, it's the last bid for everyone. The checkered flag is out. 5 drivers improved last time around. We may have some improvements. Wyron Tan, very, very close to his best. We are talking thousandths of a second away from his best. So he stays in second place. That was 0.6 of a second or thereabouts down on Tanat Satya's very best. So 1 minute 41.467 seconds. No wonder he's parked into the pits. But what we saw from Satya was a series of quick laps. See who's top in the AM class. It's not the AMAC Lamborghini we're looking at there. There's 3rd in class. Top in the AM class is Nakanishi in the LM Corsa Porsche. That's not the ARN. That's the guy who's 7th fastest the Pro-Am runners.
Seyfried has finished that lap, did not advance. Bruce stays in 5th.
Yeah, the improvements were actually just the tail end of the top 10. I just talked to Christina Nielsen, the Danish racer. She got it really together. They went up to 9th place, just demoting the 918 Porsche we've been looking at. So there's the fastest car, the ARN fastest car in the Pro-Am class. All silver runners above that. He's 7th fastest overall. So, time for the drivers to let the teams know what they really thought of those cars, but what was interesting, we're not used to gaps of half a second, in fact slightly more, 0.574 of a second. Wyron Tan got very close to just, as we said, 0.6 of a second down at the very end, but a couple of good laps from him. But a session that just kept on changing, and some of the very quickest times came when drivers appeared to have traffic around them, but not quite enough to interrupt them. Close enough to give them a bit of a tow if they needed it, but also the good thing, you could be close, but as long as the other driver is very close to your pace, they're not going to trip you up. It's just if you have someone who's on an out lap or what have you. But at the end, a very, very clean, tidy session there. And the 911 Porsche, one of 2 from Absolute Racing at the top of the pile. In sister car 912, Wambo. That's the one with the green flashes rather than the red. 3rd fastest, so all going very well indeed. And Absolute Racing with its 2 Audis, split them. So it's Absolute Racing Porsche from Absolute Racing Audi from Absolute Racing Porsche. And the number 13 Audi from Absolute Racing We saw that have a problem early on. That's down in 19th position overall. But for Absolute Racing, we'll be very, very chuffed indeed as we take a look at the qualifying positions. The end of qualifying session number 1 here at Fuji Speedway. Tanat, Satya and Thirikul leading the championship, leading the qualifying race. He'll hand over now to Philip Hampre. Wear on Tan, pushed him hard, 2 really good laps, but just half a second down. And Wambo, a later run in the 912 Porsche, couldn't get that close to his sister car, 0.6 of a second down. But look, from second place down to, well, effectively we can say half a second, takes it back to Frederick Chandovsko and Alex Au in 8th place overall. So a masterclass from the 911 Porsche at the top of the field. And the best of the rest are very close indeed, and a great spread of manufacturers. You see Porsche from Audi, Porsche from Mercedes, Ferrari, Audi, Porsche, and a Lamborghini. We know that's quick in a straight line. That's got to find a fair bit more time. But with Frederick Schandorf in session number 2, quite possible it could be higher up at the end of that session than 8th overall.
Less than a second then separating the top 7. Satya Thirikul and Philip Hamprecht have gone very well in their various Porsche guises in 2019, and Hamprecht will be very, very keen to slip into that car and see if he can improve upon the time set by his teammate. As you said, over half a second quicker than everybody else, and of course this track getting better and better as time goes on. No immediate threat of rain, although the weather forecast keeps promising to spoil our day, or at least make it interesting.
Let's face it, over the years, the Fuji Speedway has provided every sort of weather, often within the course of one single race. But right now, we can't see the top of the mountain, but when you look down into the valley, great view. Race control still down there discussing one more session to go for them in terms of Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia, and then, of course, the race this afternoon. And again, the 888 Racing Mercedes very, very keen to be first out onto the black stuff, and actually it's more like grey stuff now. It was black this morning because it was wet, drying all the time. And Shane van Gisbergen, sort of superstar of V8 racing, supercar racing down in Australia. The Kiwi's going to lead the field out. And there's Jeffrey Ibrahim. Good, solid qualifying run from him. Ended up 17th overall, just under 3 seconds down on the pace. But again, for him, he's not just continuing to learn the car, he's learning the circuits as well. Has to be remembered, this is his first full season of international racing. I'm sure he's loving every second of it. He seemed on very good form last night at the reception. We had all the drummers and drinks party here at Fuji Speedway. And he's got his regular teammate, Yasemin Jafar, again, talking away with him.
Yeah, they were energetic, those drummers, weren't they? Making a lot of noise. Very, very, very talented indeed. The timing was immense. You talk about timing when driving one of these very, very quick cars. My goodness, those drummers in sync to the max they were. Sorry,
there I've just gone for the schoolboy error. I talked about Shane van Gisbergen. He was driving it last time out. This weekend, of course, I've just mentioned the return of Yasemin Jafar. So it's an all-Malaysian driver lineup. The Australian entered 888 Racing Mercedes, and Jasmine was fastest of everybody this morning, but track conditions have really changed from light wet to fully dry. And for Success Racing, Japanese racing team, on board with us this weekend. First visit to the 2019 championship. Great to have them around. One of 3 new cars in the GT3 class. Just to reiterate why it looks crowded in the pit lane and crowded out on the circuit, we have 24 cars in the GT3 class. And combined with the 7 cars in GT4, we'll have the best field of the year. 31 runners coming out to play for the 2 races here at Fuji Speedway. Timing screens have gone blue. That means there's nothing on it. That means, of course, no times on the screen. Qualifying for session race number 1 sorted. Now, driver 2 in these 2 driver combinations, they're going to go out onto the circuit, and we're going to see what we get in terms of a grid for tomorrow's race. Car Guy Racing, the absolutely brightest car in the field. Their team workshops just outside the bounds of the circuit here, and Car Guy Racing with great aplomb all around the world. Good to have them on board, and certainly if you feel it's rather dull, it's great to look down the treble 7 car. Yusuke Yamasaki will be taking that over, but it really their HQ just down the road from the circuit. They bring a lot of support when they come out to play here. Teams, friends, family.
Green lights on, and we're underway with that 888 car leading the pack. Quickest in final practice, quickest in this most recent qualifying session. Sorry, they were quickest in final practice only. It was Satya Thirikul that was quickest in this most recent.
And how? Just okay.
Session.
What we had there, Steve, was in qualifying session number 1 was a gap of over half a second, which is pretty much unheard of. This one, well, it may be closer. It certainly looks like more of a race as they leave the pit lane, but look out, I would say, for Alessio Picari yellow Craft Bamboo Mercedes. That is, we've seen it at the sharp end. I think we can see it all over now. Jockeying for position.
And they had a very good weekend in Suzuka last time out, looking to emulate that. A bit crowded out there at the front.
Only one Lamborghini at the sharp end in qualifying session number 1, and that particular car, the 666, got, well, there it is, from Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, now in the hands of Flying Dane Frederick Schandorf. He's really, really impressed me through this season. And also look for the number 12 Audi. Oh, here it is, coming out ahead of the sister car. So it's Martin Rump, the Estonian, who just seemed, particularly at Suzuka, to be on top of the Audi R8 LMS. And following him out, Frankie Chen Kong Fu. Here comes the car guy racing Ferrari, and in behind we've got a new face as the second driver in the 999 Audi, because this weekend we have Rahel Frey, Swiss racer, and she's joining Waian Chen aboard, taking a drive from Andre Couto. And great to have Rahel, been racing a little bit in single seasons, but an awful lot in GTs, mainly in Europe, but she had a big smile on her face when I saw her walking through the paddock here, enjoying her visit to Fuji Speedway. And who wouldn't? Maybe she'd just seen the top of the volcano. I think that could have been it.
That generates plenty of smiles, I must say, but driving around this circuit must do something very similar.
I think so too. But particularly if you're a driver and you've seen these circuits around the world, thought that I'd really like to try that one. But if you're beat, you're doing a German championship, as Rahel has in recent years, doing the ADAC GT Masters. In fact, that races in Austria and Holland as well, but largely German based. For the Swiss racer, a chance to see a track she can watch people race on, and now it will be her turn. So the first car that will go for a flying lap is a 888 Racing Mercedes, Yasemin Jafar aboard, and really getting Silver Dream Machine. Yeah, he's already got the move on that. There you can just see, can't you, the outlap, just getting a bit of a feel, because when they were on the track this morning it was wet. In fact, I'll tell you what, his fastest time, 1 minute 52.2, those times are going to be 10 seconds and more away from the pace. We already saw that in qualifying session number 1. Yasemin, though, has the advantage, clear track, but often these drivers are faster on their second flight lap, and again, cutting the verge there, just kicking up the moisture that's still sitting there on the curbing. And if you get too much rubber onto the grass beyond, then it's going to take you with it. The
Jazzman, very eloquent young man, deep thinking, loves to assess what's going on the track. Very pleasant man to spend time with as his teammate.
The Prince of Johor making a real splash. I mean, dream start at his home circuit at Sepang, now spreading his wings all around Asia. So Yasemin going up to the final sequence of corners again. You can see just not quite enough heat in those tyres yet. The car understeering out of those final twisters at the end of that combination through, well, they keep changing the names of the corner. That's effectively turn 13, GR Supra corner. But down the start-finish straight he goes, that magnificent rumble that the Mercedes makes. He's almost caught the last of the drivers out of the pits. I think this Manuel Mexico, in fact, we still owed one more. 23 of the 24 rounds on the track. The time's on the board, 1 minute 41.5 seconds flat. That is a very, very good lap. Let's see what he can do from there. Alex Imperatori, the second driver of the start-finish line, goes second. Melvin Moe, the 55 Mercedes, that's the one with the pink flashes there, you can see it, headlights blazing, goes third fastest. Philip Hamprecht, fourth, becomes fifth. It's Chris van der Drift. The times are going to move around. Chris van der Drift actually goes up the charts. Imperatori's time, has that just been taken away from him? Okay, I think he may go back up the charts, but his time is listed as 1 minute 41.6, which put him second. But for some reason, he's already had 9:12 track limits.
Yeah.
No, that's not him. He's 9:18, but maybe he's also had his. I haven't seen that warning on the timing screen. So
we'll see how that
exceeds the track limits, and you will be punished. They are watching. We've seen the shots of the people in race control. All eyes on the screens. But it's Yasemin Jafar from Melvin Moe. So
really good top three times. Jafar, Moe, van der Drift. Good start from these gentlemen.
Yeah, those are very good. I think the track is getting drier all the time. Chris, the Anston. No, sorry, that was it was the Anston Racing Mercedes keeping out of the way though. But it's very hard to string together two super flyers. But a really good middle sector. Melvin Moe means business. Second fastest. He's fastest of anybody through the middle of the three sectors.
We can keep an eye on Imperatori again, although he seems to be down the list there. He's registered a good sector 1 time after that, apparently for a quick first lap.
Yeah, well, we know his first flying lap was good for second, but for some reason not. But I'm sure it's a track limits violation. Now we've got Yasemin Jafar still waiting to complete that finish.
There he is, coming to get his second lap underway. or finished,
Well,
I
that's
should say.
9:18 coming through, which will be Imperatori, who goes second fastest again. He improves to 1 minute 41.9, which would have put him top, but Yasmin Jafar had just gone to 1 minute 40.831. And now Melvin Moe, who I thought might have been going top, goes into second, just 29 thousandths of a second
Ooh,
off
we've
the
got to spin
pace.
that. 128 there,
Yeah,
Asai.
Exactly, that is the Vitana Motorsport Lamborghini. Akihiro Asai, Japanese driver, you'd expect him to get it right at home, but he's clearly been a little too ambitious. The car, the same colour as the racing surface, it sort of blends in rather. You can only see the stickers and not the car.
Only just made it over the grass.
Just, exactly. Slightly in the way of the ARN Racing Porsche that had to weave around it and look out for the white, blue and red Mercedes that came through. That's Alessio Picariello, no flying lap. Now we have all 24 cars. In fact, the last one out was the number 99 Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes, but we want to see the 88. It's the one at the back of the pack there. The Hub Auto Corsa Ferrari, Yuya Sakamoto, gets out of the way of ARN Racing Porsche. That's in the hands of Kamimura, but it's the car behind Hub Auto, an 88. Alessio Picariello, Craft Bamboo Racing, on pole when he last went qualifying, which was 2 weeks ago at Suzuka. And again, he's doing the job to see what he can do to set the grid for the second of the pair of the races here for Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia at Fuji Speedway. Yaziman Jafar, fastest by 29 thousandths of a second. No improvements for him this time around. So far, he's got the third sector complete.
It looks like Imperatori's on another quick lap. He could challenge the two above him, Mo and Jafar.
Well, I want to see what Yokomizo can do. He was down in 20th position. He's 21st now. It looks like he's going to improve. I know he's got to complete the lap, but surely will go up the charts. Number 8, Kamimura. That was a very good lap. That suddenly vaulted him up to 5th place overall, the number 8.
Imperatori's gone into the pits, by the way.
Oh, is Imperatori
Yeah.
into the pits? In fact, 3 of the top 5 runners are into the pits. He's in the pits, Melvin Moe and Yazaman Jafar. That's why they're not improving. Craft Bamboo. What's it going to be for Alessio Picariello? He's 11th at the moment, but the track is opening up in front of him. He's set his fastest first sector. Again, looking at rear shot. They go past the cafeteria, not that they can notice it, in the middle part of the lower section of the circuit.
We noticed it though.
I did, a very nice carry in there yesterday lunchtime. Fabulous building, brilliant view out over the middle part of the circuit. So, 1 minute 40.831 seconds, that is the target time. Top of the charts for Triple Eight Racing, Yazaman Jafar, the Malaysian racer, the star of the show so far. Melvin Moe from Taipei, just 29 thousandths of a second down, and 0.2 of a second down, Philip Hamprecht.
Picariello's gone quickest of all in the middle sector, so let's see how he gets on as he comes round to register the full lap time. Currently in 11th, as you say.
2 corners to go, but just want to point out Hamprecht 3rd at the moment. No improvements from this lap, but bear in mind that's on pole for race 1, and if he can stay in this position, which I think is for about 20 more seconds until Picariello goes through, if they can be 1st and 3rd on the grids in 2 races, they would be very pleased indeed.
1:48.31 to beat. That's Jafar's quickest time so far. Picariello, here we go.
Surely it's going to go top of the charts. Yes, it does. 1 minute 40.510 seconds. 0.3 of a second clear of the Mercedes. The 88 Mercedes now fastest from the 888. Yazaman Jafar was in the pits. He's back out again. Still time of plenty. 6 minutes remaining in this 15-minute qualifying session. This decides the grid for the Sunday race here at Fuji Speedway. Picariello, Jafar, Moe, Martin Rump. I said look for him, he'd work his way to the top, and he's looking faster again. He's 4 tenths down on this lap. He's improved in sector 1, improved in sector 2.
With just under 6 minutes left, you'd imagine that Jafar, Moe, and the Lope would come out again. They're on their out lap, looking to see if they can get back the place that Picariello's just taken from them.
Going to be hard. He just banged in the fastest first sector of anybody. He's not just proving the point, he's reiterating. Melvin Moe really swinging it around the 55 Mercedes. So Craft Bamboo looking very good indeed with 1st and 3rd fastest times. The sister car 99 at the moment in the hands of Darryl O'Young is in 11th position. If they get all 3 in the top 10, that's very, very good for Craft Bamboo Racing. So they're looking pretty good in the garage there.
And Martin Rumpa's just gone quickest in the middle sector, so the top 4 are really slinging it out in these final 5 minutes to see who can get quickest.
Well, it's chance for Malaysian flags. I just briefly called Melvin Moe without looking at my notes very well. Taiwanese, but he is from Malaysia. So Jafar in 2nd place and Melvin Moe in 3rd. Looking good. Car Guy Racing. This is Yazaman Jafar at the front of the queue, just in behind the Car Guy Racing Ferrari. That's only down in 17th place overall, so won't get in his way. It's now behind him.
Rump's quickest middle sector didn't allow him to advance from 4th. He stays there.
Manuel Metzger starting to wind it up in the 97 entry. That's the Solite Indigo racing car he shares with Roloff Bruins. He shared it in round 2, now back for round 4. That is picking up the pace as well.
There's Jasmine Jafar, Picarello, who's quickest on top, went so well in the first sector after that, but he's pulled up, gone into the pit, so for the time being satisfied with where he is, which is right on top of the charts, but that will now be challenged surely by Jasmine Jafar.
Car that's again fastest down the start-finish straight is the Lamborghini. This time it's up to, well, I looked a second ago, it's up to 11th place. Frederick Schandorf down to 12th. He's a second off the ultimate pace, but again, super sleek. He is improving his time. And suddenly, fastest first sector of, you don't normally look down to 18th place out of 24.
But then when you see the name Rio Haryanto, you're not too surprised.
Yeah, he's taken over from David Chipto Biantoro in the all-Indonesian pairing, T2 Motorsports in their Ferrari, and Rio's got excited. Rio's on the move.
Let's see what he can do in the middle sector. We'll keep you up to date. Not quite so good. Well, 32.458 in the middle sector is pretty quick, actually. There have been quicker.
Well, in that first qualifying session where we had Tanat Sathin Thirikul top of the pile in the 911 Porsche, it's down in the hands of Philip Hamprecht in 6th, but he was clear by just over half a second. This session is tighter. I thought it would be 0.3 of a second between Picariello, who's in the pits, and Yasemin Jafar. The clock down to 3 minutes remaining. 888 Racing Mercedes down into turn 1, heavy on the braking. 911, this is Philip Hamprecht, just mentioned him. He is 6th. That was the end of an outlap. Now he's going to fly lap. We might see that 911 challenging for overall honours, but I must say, when Alessio Picariello gets in qualifying form, he's not exactly slow in the races either.
Haryanto's only moved
target.
So I beg your pardon, moved up from 18th to 16th, so just marginal improvements from him after that sterling first sector.
Yeah, really good, but no improvement in sector 2, no improvement in sector 3. He can find a whisker and he can gain about 3 or 4 positions, but a lot of cars track times deleted for
including
drivers.
Jafar.
Yasemin Jafar had a lap time. Track limits, the same story for all of them. And then suddenly, as if from nowhere, the number 17 is up. The Anstone Racing Mercedes is up into 2nd place. Naoki Yokomitsu, he knows this circuit. He's gone rather well here before. He was a winner 2 years ago for Car Guy Racing when they turned up with a Lamborghini. Shared that with Kei Cozzolino. So we know he knows the track. But so it's Picariello from Yokomizo. Anybody else with an O on the end of their name? Sakamoto, he should be able to go up to 3rd place. But it's Yasemin Jafar. Will be regressing the track limits. It's having his times deleted. But it's all out there for all of them. Now the fast time for anybody through the speed trap is the car that's slowest. It's another Lamborghini. We saw it early on, the Success Racing entry. Quick in a straight line isn't necessarily the answer to a quick lap around the Fuji Speedway. With 15 turns, that's not too surprising. Where are the changes coming in?
Currently 9th fastest, Hamprecht will be disappointed with that.
But Yasemin Jafar, he's a fighter, not just a thinker. He's within. He moved up very, very close indeed, but just had the time taken away again. He moved up into 2nd place.
It was very brief.
He got to within a few thousandths of a second of the ultimate pace, but still Picariello, who's back on the track for more. 1 and a bit minutes remaining. Looking at Frederick Schandorf, he's down in 14th place. He is improving, but he's just a second down on the ultimate pace. Maybe able to gain a place or 2 this time around in the 666 Lamborghini. Down in 14th. Does that change? But his time improves by a few thousandths, stays in 14th overall. Yasemin Jafar, that's 2 flying laps he's had removed from him in the session. Alessio Picariello still top, 0.291 of a second now from Naoki Yokomitsu.
Well, it'll be a learning process for Jasmine Jafar, going around this track and having times chalked off. Don't want that to happen in the race.
3.999 seconds, let's call it 4 seconds between friends from the 88 Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes at the top of the pile and the 390 Success Racing Lamborghini down on the tail.
Jasmine Jafar has just gone quickest in the middle sector in his attempt to advance from 3rd.
But look at the screen, he lost 0.18 of a second, 108, and he gained almost exactly the same margin. It's only this final sector. He's got to go faster than ever before. He may find a tiny amount of time which will get him ahead of Naoki Yokomitsu, but at the moment it's that 17 Anstone Racing Mercedes, blue, red, yellow and orange splodges on it, that's second on the grid for tomorrow's race. But Jafar does it by the smallest of margins, now 0.222 of a second down on the ultimate pace. Very, very good run. he's really fought that. I don't know if the team said, oh, you have to do it again, your lap's been taken away. Track limits have not been the friends for everybody. But this is the car that's fastest of all. The checkered flag is out. There was no improvement on that final flying lap. But you know what? That final flying lap from Alessio Picariello was still quicker than anybody else managed. It was a tenth of a second away from his ultimate pace. Last time at Suzuka, he took pole position for the second of the race. He's done it all over again. That pole position was turned into victory with his teammate Jeffrey Lee. So Alessio Picariello, very smiley at the party last night. His demeanour, he's always positive when he does his racing out here in the Far East, and he's showed why he's such a popular racer on the Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia circuit.
Kamimura, the latest man to have a lap time chalked off because of these track limitations. They'll all have to watch that very carefully later today and on Sunday.
Also, just want to point out that Anstone Racing Mercedes Naoki Yokomizo just pushed back into third place, but his final lap was his fastest, so the top three cars covered by 0.261 of a second. Melvin Moe, really good run in the second of the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes. Is in third place, and the top second covers the top 13 runners. Frederick Schandorf improving on his final flying lap, so top half of the field plus one, a bonus driver, Frederick Schandorf, within a second.
You say a second, it's inside 7/10. Remarkable. Top 13 runners inside 7/10.
Yes, in fact, yes, Darrell Young just at 1.024 seconds away, but the time is 0.662 of a second, 2/3 of a second, quite right, well spotted for the first 13 positions. Everybody has now taken the checkered flag. Here is the 17 Mercedes that for Anstone Racing. Naoki Yokomizo, as I said, a winner here 24 months ago in the first of the Blancpain GT Asia series. Now, of course, it's the Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia. We have a championship in America and a championship also in Europe. All the points will be combined together at the end of the season for the overall title. But right now, looking for glory here, Naoki Yokomizo shows his knowledge of the circuit, his knowledge of the car. And we have a Mercedes on pole, we have a Mercedes on second on the grid, a Mercedes third on the grid, fourth and fifth on the grid is the first non-Mercedes for tomorrow's, the second of the two races here. Martin Rump, the Absolute Racing Audi driver.
Lots of fun, Bruce. Looking forward to the race.
I think so too. Super close. Last few cars coming in, including the T2 Motorsport Ferrari that went very well in that session car 75. In fact, it changed so fast. He suddenly got... and we saw a great pace from Rio Haryanto. He ended up 16th overall, but he set some good sector ties. But again, it shows different cars go well in different places. Here's Rahel Fry nosing her way into the pit lane in the 999 Audi. How did she do? She ended up 17th overall, 1.1 seconds off the pace. So exhausted by looking at drivers exceeding track limits. Slight pause in race control, and we'll take a look at the eventual qualifying positions. 0.222 of a second was the margin Alessio Picariello had over Yasaman Yafar. 88 ahead of 888. Naoki Yokomizo really put one out there for Anstone Racing to be third fastest. Look how tight it is. And then Melvin Moe really going very, very well for Craft Bamboo Racing. Best of the drivers not in a Mercedes, in an Audi, Martin Rump. And then the best of the Porsches. Well, that was quite a surprise. And right at the end, it was the number 8 crew, ARN Racing. So the very well-fancied Absolute Racing Porsches 911 and 912 ended up in 8th and 11th places overall. So it didn't seem to be a Porsche session at the end. Maybe the drier conditions suited the Mercedes. But come on, mate, that was quick-fire qualifying. Plenty to look at. And as you can see, 0.662 of a second off the pole. You wouldn't think you'd be that far down the grid, but that's where Frederick Schandorf ended up 13th overall. So a real mix of teams and drivers and cars at the very sharp end of the field. A very clean session. We saw one spin. Conditions continuing to dry, and of course this morning when they went on the circuit it was wet, it was slippery, but the teams hopefully have got their setups now sorted. But then again, if you set up for the dry, who knows if it's going to be dry for the race today or tomorrow. But we now know the complexion of the grids for both of those races and really think bring it on. All the drivers will be now thinking about that run down to turn 1. The track then drops away to turn 2. It's one thing in qualifying, Steve, but when it comes to racing, sometimes that red mist descends.
Yeah, good session for Mercedes, wasn't it? All of the top 4 places, I think 5 of the top 7, so they will be confident that they can perform well during the race. Tough session for these guys, wasn't it? Track limits causing problems as we look at the highlights.
Well, it was almost highlights the whole way through. Yasaman Yafar showed great intent. 888 Racing like their car out early on. 918, the Panther AAS Motorsport crew. The returning Alexandra Imperatori expected great things. We expected Frederick Schandorf, who went out third, to be quick in a straight line. The Lamborghini looks mighty. down the long straight, 1.5 kilometres long, but it doesn't tend to progress towards ultimate lap times around the full 15 turns. But Yasemin Jafar went out and put the pace down early on, watched on by his teammate Jeffrey Ibrahim. Alexander Imperatori also showing very good form for Panther AS Motorsport. The real story of the session as the Anstone Racing Mercedes moved out of the way, being very polite. That was on an outlap, and you could see the speed of approach that Imperatori was on a flyer. It was about making space for yourself. 24 cars, the biggest GT3 field we've had this year. Really very busy out on circuit with some good flag work from the marshals and some polite driving from the drivers. Again, look, the ARN Racing Porsche saw it, moved out of the way. The driver he saw coming fastest was the driver who was setting the pace. Alessio Picariello, Craft Bamboo Racing, went to the top of the charts. Yasemin Jafar, far from satisfied, came out to see what he could do. Melvin Moe, the 55 Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes, putting in some really good times as Malaysian drivers found themselves right at the top of the charts. But still, the Belgian Alessio Picariello, his name atop the charts in the 88 Mercedes. Was he going to be reduced? Yasemin Jafar kept going for it, lost a couple of times for exceeding track limits, and certainly was not alone in that. Picked his way past the 777 Ferrari. Car Guy Racing, no problem at all, was the quicker driver in that pair and kept on advancing. In the end, he would be 0.222 of a second down, with his best lap being his final one as the checkered flag fell, but didn't do enough to topple Alessio Picariello. He was on pole at Suzuka. He's done it all over again in the 88 Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes. A really good run late in the session. Naoki Yokomitsu, a winner here 24 months ago, this time with Anstone Racing in a Mercedes. Just going past the McLaren there. Third fastest, just a shade over a quarter of a second down on the fastest driver of all, which, as I said, was the 88 Mercedes of Alessio Picariello. And here we have that good run from Naoki Yokomitsu, just going ahead of the Mercedes there, making the track space. But a very clear couple of sessions. And that's it from us now. That's the end of qualifying for the two races for the Blancpain GT World Challenge Asia here at the Fuji Speedway. We have seen the top of Mount Fuji this morning. It's hiding, being coy at the moment, but the track has dried. The grids have been formed, and I think the racing is going to be absolutely fantastic. There may be rain, we can't tell you, but what we can tell you, it's very tight. Just throw this statistic at you one more time. 2/3 of a second cover the top half of the grid, plus a bonus driver. 13 of the 24 car field, so super close. But right now, Alessio Picariello, he is the driver with the bragging rights. And it has been a really good, clean session. And I'm looking forward to the races very much indeed. And just to let you know, one little factor, coming here, leading the championship, is the number 911 Porsche crew. And they have taken pole for this afternoon's race. So really watch out for Tanat Satya and Thirikul and Philip Pamprecht. They're looking very much set fair here. They do have a time penalty to serve, Steve. We'll get to that when we come to the races, because right now I think you should celebrate the form of the drivers out around the circuit.
15:45 local time for race 1 today. Race 2 on Sunday. That's at 13:05 Japan time. So look forward to that. I think you can see from the qualifying sessions that it's going to be very competitive indeed, particularly among these GT3 drivers who are so finely separated.
Certainly are, and also as we take a look from, well, pretty close to the start of the legendary banking beyond the end of the main straight these days, but part of it back then, that first corner combination, it's wide on the way in, it tightens, and you can see the track actually disappears in this image.
It
and
does,
that is where a lot of the trouble happens,
yeah,
between turns 1 and turn 2, and then it opens out all over again. So I think that's going to be a very busy place. 24 GT3 runners, 7 GT4 runners in behind, going down, looking for glory, looking for position, and not wanting to report back to the pits with bits missing from their cars.
Yeah.
And again, you look at your weather forecast. What is sitting out ahead of us?
Well, by race time, we're looking at between 30 and 40% chance of rain, and that gets worse as the day goes on, although that won't bother us. On Sunday, looks as if it's going to be sunny with a little bit of cloud, but no threat of rain. So the possibility of a little bit of moisture later today.
Good stuff. So cloud above the circuit, not on it. I've certainly commentated on races where the circuit has been wholly enveloped in fog, and the drivers have to remember where to turn because they can't see it. But right now we've had a wet morning that turned dry for qualifying, got drier all the time, got closer all the time, super close, particularly in qualifying session number 2. So for everybody in this 6-round, 12-race championship, it's super, super poised at this late stage. You know, the first round, well, of course, you don't want to drop points anywhere, but now they can see the ramification of the first 6 races across those 3 rounds. We started at Sepang. We moved from Malaysia up to the Chang International Circuit at Buriram in Thailand. Round number 3 at Suzuka 2 weekends ago, and now here we are at Fuji Speedway, looking to see where we're heading in the championship. But right now, coming here to this meeting, there we are, 4th. We've got Yongam in August in South Korea and the Shanghai International Circuit to bring it to a close at the end of September. What we have is Hamprecht and Satya and Thirikal on 88 points. They're 11 points clear of Yuya Sakamoto, and plenty to play for. Look to for Rolf Bruins in the mix, Vutakon in through Fuvasak likewise. A jumble of teams, a jumbling of drivers has been a stirring of the pot, I think we could say, coming here for Fuji. A couple of extra teams, 3 extra teams coming to join us in GT3, 2 in GT4. We've got a 31 car field, we've got a fantastic circuit, and it really is off to lunch and then consider what lies ahead, because I think we're going to be treated to some really, really good racing. A few drivers, of course, Steve, will be going back with a tail between their legs to the pits because they transgressed. They went out beyond those white lines. We certainly saw Yazam and Yafar have a couple of times dock, but the fact he was still going at the end indicates that all was very good indeed, because he ended up 2nd fastest overall.
Yeah, we're looking at halfway mark of the season now.